Wisdom. Xiefeng. Translation edited by Qinyu. Fame knows no bounds, business opportunities are limitless, learning is infinite, and wisdom is vast. Just as steel becomes harder with an increase in carbon content, people become wiser with the growth of wisdom. Knowledge is acquired, while wisdom is cultivated. Knowledge is a summary of experience. Wisdom is a product of thought. Knowledge represents the branches, twigs, and leaves. Wisdom is the fragrant flowers and abundant fruits. Archimedes used his wisdom to repeatedly thwart the powerful Roman army's advances. Bill Gates, through his wisdom, ushered humanity into the age of networking. The Buddha remains immortal through his wisdom, and Jesus shines with a divine halo because of his wisdom. Oh, wisdom! You are the symbol of strength, the source of wealth, the bridge to the mysterious, and the touchstone for distinguishing truth from falsehood. You are both the fierce storm and the bright spring sun, both the weapon of the devil and the arm of the angel, both the olive branch that transforms swords into plowshares and the smoke of war in times of chaos. A mind without wisdom is like a barren desert, pale and desolate. A mind with wisdom is like a beautiful landscape, full of splendor. Nature is mesmerizing and captivating due to its ever-changing phenomena. People are admirable for their rich wisdom. Seeking wealth is not as valuable as seeking wisdom. Wealth is lifeless, while wisdom is alive. Wealth may disperse when a person dies, but wisdom shines even more brightly upon one's death. Wealth can be stolen, lost, or robbed, but wisdom always accompanies its owner, illuminating their life. Wisdom is boundless and inexhaustible. By engaging in deep thought and research, wisdom emerges from all phenomena. Through meditation and reflection, wisdom can arise at any time and place. Wisdom can transform decay into magic, give wings to thought, serve as the lever to move the earth, and act as the rainbow spanning time and space. It is the warm sun in winter, the cool breeze in summer, the flowers of spring, the fruits of autumn, the oasis in the desert, the willows in the Gobi, the torch rising in the darkness, and the scattered islands in the vast ocean. People become great because of wisdom, broad-minded due to wisdom, rich in depth because of wisdom, and have a promising future due to wisdom. Conversely, people are impoverished due to a lack of wisdom, incomprehensible because of a lack of wisdom, drifting and unstable because of a lack of wisdom, and their life become dull and colorless without wisdom. The source of wisdom comes from the greatest creator. Only by following the way of the greatest creator can one cultivate boundless wisdom. Wisdom that benefits humanity originates from reverence for the greatest creator, reverence for life, and reverence for nature. Wisdom that harms humanity stems from selfishness, greed, and lawlessness. The chapter of wisdom is but a small wave on the ocean of wisdom. Like the chapter of Revelations, its purpose is to inspire the thinking of Chanyuan celestials, guiding everyone into the magnificent palace of wisdom, appreciating the vast gentleness of the ocean of wisdom, experiencing the expansive brilliance of the space and time of wisdom, and climbing toward the highest realm of life and life under the illumination of the light of wisdom. Along the way, let us gather the pearls of happiness and extend our lives to the celestial islands continent of the Elysium world. 石头渡河, crossing the river as stones. Xiefeng. Translation edited by Qinyu. Under the golden sunlight, the sky was vast, with light clouds drifting and a gentle breeze blowing. A great river sparkled as it flowed slowly. To the east of the river lay a boundless sandy beach, barren and lifeless, with only a few foxes coming to drink from the river in the evening. Occasionally, a lizard could be seen scurrying across the scorching pebbles in search of food, and crabs would sometimes crawl ashore, glance around, and then quickly dive back into the water. On the west side of the river, the scene was entirely different. Instead of a sandy beach, there was a lush wetland filled with herds of cattle and sheep, cranes dancing in the sky, frogs leaping about, and fish and shrimp swimming freely. The river was the boundary, and the scenery on either side was as different as heaven and earth, utterly contrasting. Whenever a light drizzle fell, white mist would spread, or when the clouds reflected the setting sun and a rainbow appeared faintly, a young stone on the eastern shore, named Shirtu, would fall into deep thought. He longed for the scenery on the other side and was tired of the lifeless sandy beach where his family had lived for generations. He wanted to go to the other side, to enjoy the beautiful scenery on the west bank. One day, a torrential rainstorm mixed with hail came pouring down from the sky, causing little Shida's back to ache. He could no longer bear it and began to run wildly on the sandy beach, shouting as he ran, "I want to go to the other side! I want to go to the other side!" After the rain stopped and the sky cleared, everything became tranquil again, but the sandy beach was in an uproar. Someone has a wild idea of going to the west side. Poor child, he must be crazy. Ignorance, sheer ignorance. What foolishness! This guy's brain is not normal. He should be sent to a mental hospital for treatment. Whose child is this? How can he talk such nonsense? He should be locked up in prison. We can't let him confuse people with his wild talk. We need to strengthen basic education, or the order of this great sandy beach will be disrupted by such delusional people. Finally, the ancient stone on the beach spoke up. We must hold a grand assembly for all the stones on the beach and invite our esteemed and wise scholars to educate the younger generation and save them from these wayward thoughts. The young stone who wanted to go to the other side was surrounded, and the wise stones began to bombard him with their wisdom. You want to go to the west side? Isn't that just wishful thinking? Have you ever heard of a stone crossing the river? Child, we can't entirely blame you. We elders haven't given you enough basic education. You must understand that if a stone tries to cross the river, it will inevitably drown. The weight of stones is greater than the buoyancy of the river's water, so stones cannot float on water. The conclusion is, stones cannot cross the river. Don't indulge in fantasies. Accept your fate. Stones are not birds. We cannot reach the other side. Poor little Shirtu was completely confused by the well-meaning education. He hung his head, tears welling up in his eyes, muttering only one sentence, "I just want to go to the west side," as he silently withdrew from the crowd to live in solitude. One day, a few stones of the same age came to find him. They also yearned for the life on the west side. They came to the riverbank and gazed at the picturesque scenery on the other side, and began to chatter excitedly among themselves. To cross the river, it's best to take a boat. To cross the river, it would be best if we could fly like birds. To cross the river, it would be best to ride on the back of a crab. To cross the river, it would be best if we hollowed out our insides. To cross the river, it would be best if a strong wind could carry us over to the other side. As they were fervently discussing, a few boys came by and stopped beside them. They were humans, perhaps drawn by the stone's strong will. One of the boys said to his companions, "Let's have a contest to see who can throw a stone across the river so that it skims the water's surface and reaches the other side." In an instant, these boys eagerly picked up stones at their feet and hurled them toward the other side of the river. Whoosh, swoosh, whoosh. One after another, the little stones skimmed the water's surface and flew across to the other side. Rumors quickly spread across the great sandy beach. Did you hear? It's said that those disobedient boys insisted on crossing the river and all drowned. Exactly. How could a stone possibly cross the river? It's no surprise they drowned. From now on, everyone must be vigilant. We must not allow fanciful ideas to take root, and we must prevent our children from going near the river. Living within our means is the key to a safe life. We stones can never cross the river. As the old saying goes, if you don't listen to the elders, you'll drown in the river. Can stones cross the river? Can humans reach the celestial island's continent? 我的6个小时上哪去了? Where did my 6 hours go? Xiefeng. Translation edited by Qinyu. Everyone has 24 hours in a day, or so we think. But hold on a moment. On April 30th, 2005, I only had 18 hours. Where did my other 6 hours go? On the evening of April 29th at 7 p.m., to make it easier to understand, I'll use rounded times. I boarded a Zimbabwean Airlines flight to Beijing. After an overnight flight, I arrived at Beijing International Airport at 12 p.m. on April 30th, a total flight time of 17 hours. Here's where things get tricky. 12 p.m. on April 30th was the time on my watch, but Beijing time was already 6 p.m. To keep things simple, I had to adjust my watch to 6 p.m. And just like that, I ended up with only 18 hours on April 30th, with 6 hours that should have belonged to me disappearing. So, where did they go? Of course, this was caused by the time zone difference. But regardless, in terms of human-conceived time, I only lived 18 hours that day. Now let's speculate. The time difference is caused by horizontal space. Different horizontal spaces have different times. As long as we move from one space to another, we will inevitably gain or lose time. Using Earth as the origin, let's draw a coordinate axis. The x-axis represents the east, the y-axis represents the west, the n-axis represents the north, and the s-axis represents the south. Now, if we travel eastward along the x-axis, we will lose time. If we travel westward, we will gain time. For example, if we fly from Beijing to Zimbabwe in one day, we could have 30 hours that day. If we travel northward or southward, we neither gain nor lose time. Interesting, isn't it? Let's think further. Traveling from Zimbabwe to Beijing in one day results in a loss of 6 hours. If we take 2 days to get to Beijing, how many hours will we lose? Still 6 hours, of course. By analogy, even if it takes a year to get to Beijing, the lost time is still 6 hours. Here's a fascinating question. If we could travel from Harare to Beijing in 1 hour, we would still lose 6 hours. So what if we could do it in 1 second? Naturally, we would still lose 6 hours. Losing 6 hours in 1 second seems like a bad deal. But wait, what is lost may actually be gained. We would gain negative time, which belongs to the realm of the non-material world, a topic for another day. Now, imagine losing 24 hours in a single day. What would happen? If you fly eastward from Harare along the x-axis and return to Harare within 24 hours, you would end up losing an entire day. If you depart on the 1st, after just 24 hours of flight, you wouldn't arrive on the 2nd but on the 3rd. As a result, a year would no longer have 365 days but 364. Even more interestingly, what if we flew like this every day? If we had a fast enough flying tool, we could reduce an entire year of 365 days to just 1 day. By analogy, we could reduce 1,000 years to a day, 10,000 years to a day, or even 100,000 years to a day. Similarly, if we flew westward along the y-axis, we could extend a single day into 100,000 years. Simple reasoning, once it exceeds people's imagination, becomes profound theory. When science surpasses people's understanding, it turns into superstition. Lifechanuan's 36-dimensional spaces have both surpassed people's imagination and transcended their understanding. So they have become an absurdity, and people view them as an intangible theory. If we can compress a day into 18 hours or compress a year into 1 day, why can't we compress 100,000 years into 1 day? Similarly, if we can expand a day to 30 hours or stretch a day into 365 days, why can't we expand a day into 100,000 years? Flying along the x-axis, we can reach the 1,000-year world and the 10,000-year world. Flying along the y-axis, we can reach the Elysium world. Flying along the n-axis and s-axis, we can only reincarnate in place, stuck in a loop. We need speed. With speed, stones can cross rivers, and humans can reach the Celestial Islands continent. A carriage is faster than walking. A car is faster than a carriage, and an airplane is faster than a car. A spaceship is faster than an airplane, but even if we could sit on a light-speed spaceship, it would still be too slow. So, what kind of flying tool should we use? Think about it. If we constantly ponder the mysteries of heaven and earth, the wondrous truths will one day reveal themselves. I want to ask everyone, what kind of person do you think Xie Feng is? Kongling Xiu. Emptiness, spirit, grace. Xie Feng. Translation edited by Qin Yu. The void holds myriad phenomena, and within the void, myriad phenomena exist. When the mind is empty, spiritual energy arises. When spirit arises, a person becomes graceful. Chanyuan celestials, born from spiritual mountains, embody emptiness, spirit, and grace, filling the heavenly garden. The masses are weighed down, their hearts filled with rubbish. Though they appear lively, they are actually confused beings. They have ears but do not listen. They have eyes but do not see. I have just said, 1. And they continue with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All I can do is shake my head and sigh. Stones do not bloom, yet the sky creates colorful clouds. Fruits ripen and decay, yet the empty land can grow crops. An empty house is useful, and an empty heart reveals a bright celestial realm. Empty your heart, throw away yourself, and clarity will emerge. When flowers are fragrant, butterflies come naturally. When the mind is calm, thoughts flow effortlessly. When the body is clean, illness departs on its own. When the heart is pure, celestial beings arrive. As long as the heart is empty, the true result will naturally come early. Fear of death, fear of poverty, fear of loneliness, fear of solitude, all arise because the heart is not empty. Worry, anger, madness, hatred, all stem from an unemptied heart. Anxiety, fear, terror, and dread come from a heart that is not empty. Desiring to stand out, to bring honor to one's ancestors, to dominate the world, to leave a legacy. All are signs of a heart that is not empty. When the heart is not empty, everything becomes empty. When seeking to possess, in the end, nothing is gained. The principle is simple, but practicing it is as difficult as reaching heaven. Emptiness allows possession of all things, while non-emptiness is like chasing fleeting clouds. Whatever you think about will come as long as your mind is sincere. Whatever you fear will come as long as your mind is restless. Do not be a good person, nor a bad person. Do not do good deeds, nor evil deeds. Do not seek truth, nor falsehood. Return to your true nature, for true nature is the nature of the Tao. Entering the Tao brings life. The Tao is empty, and it controls all beings. Buddha is empty, and Buddhist laws govern the universe. Oh, humans, if your hearts are not empty, how can you attain the Tao and become a Buddha? Throughout history, sages have sought emptiness and ultimately accomplished their lives. Common people have always sought gold and ended up with an illusory life. Mountains have spirit and vegetation flourishes. Waters have spirit and fish and turtles abound. The sky has spirit and the weather is favorable. The earth has spirit and all things thrive. Humans have spirit and their charm is infinite. Oh, humans, quickly seek spirit. Without spirit, one is no better than an earthworm. Greed, laziness, anger, and hatred all arise because spirit has not touched the heart. Poverty and suffering throughout life also stem from a heart without spirit. Seeking spirit is not difficult. Just enter Life Genuine, and the method is simple. Fill your heart with the knowledge of the greatest creator. The most beautiful people in the world are in Life Genuine. Foshan, Taiji, Penglai celestials are flawless. Bailing, Wanyan, Qianyan celestial shine with a spiritual light. Xianhe, Lingji, Shueshan celestials are like treasure mountains. In the world, who can compare to the celestials of Chanyuan? Wherever there is spirit, there is grace. The bright moon shines among the pine trees, and the clear spring flows over the rocks. The gentle breeze blows, colorful clouds fill the sky. The warm sun paints the forest shade, and the reefs and sea waves harmonize, creating scenes that resemble the images of heaven shared by Wanyan Celestial. Grace is fragrant and alluring, captivating the soul. Grace is like a celestial peach, tempting to the taste. I love grace, the graceful wilderness, the graceful rivers and streams, the graceful blue sky, and the graceful people. Grace is not heavy makeup, but simple elegance. Grace is not flamboyant, but simple and pure. Grace is not a storm, but a gentle drizzle. Grace is not fiery passion, but a love that cannot be severed. To live among the Chanyuan celestials is to live within grace, lightly loving, deeply longing. If you wish to become a celestial, strive to find the space of emptiness, spirit, and grace. If you wish to become a celestial, you must plan your life around emptiness, spirit, and grace. If you wish to become a celestial, spread your love to the world. If you wish to become a celestial, join in building Life Genuine. 务虚与务实 Balancing the abstract and the concrete. Xiefeng, July 12, 2005. Translation edited by Qin Yu. Abstract refers to the non-material, intangible, elusive, unseen, unheard, untouchable, and without a trace. Concrete refers to substances that are tangible, practical, and can be seen, heard, touched, and traced. The abstract belongs to the realm of the spirit and mind. The concrete belongs to the realm of physical existence and practical use. Focusing on the abstract means pursuing ideals and beliefs, adhering to faith and morality, emphasizing consciousness and spirit, and elevating character and quality. Focusing on the concrete means pursuing practical value, primarily aiming to fulfill the material conditions necessary for basic survival, such as food, clothing, shelter, transportation, sexual desire, and safety. The lower a life's level, the more it focuses on the concrete. The more it focuses on the concrete, the lower the quality of life. Focusing on the concrete is for survival. The higher a life's level, the more it focuses on the abstract. The more it focuses on the abstract, the higher the quality of life. Focusing on the abstract is for living. The abstract and the concrete are opposites yet unified. Neither should be neglected. Survival is the foundation for better living. Living is the sublimation for better survival. To walk the way of the greatest creator, one must balance both the abstract and the concrete. The concrete ensures survival, while the abstract elevates the quality of life, leading to a higher level of existence. The concrete provides the conditions for focusing on the abstract, and the abstract fulfills the qualities of a celestial being. Ordinary people are ordinary primarily because they focus on the concrete all their lives, neglecting the abstract. Those who go to extremes in spiritual practice, neglecting the issues of food, clothing, shelter, transportation, safety, and sexual desire, mainly focus on the abstract while neglecting the concrete. The wise are those who appropriately balance the abstract and the concrete, neglecting neither. Celestial beings are those who have fully experienced life, solve the problem of survival, and then spend much of their time focusing on the abstract. Those who purely focus on the abstract are either gods or demons. There was a pig, deeply engrossed in reading. The other pigs in the pen couldn't understand and asked, "Brother, we have no worries about food and drink. Our master feeds us, and we live so freely and happily. Why bother yourself with reading and thinking?" The reading pig replied meaningfully, "If we don't read and think, we will always be pigs. If we don't read and think, we can only have contentment, not happiness. Contentment is short-lived, while happiness is long-lasting. Contentment comes from temporary satisfaction, while happiness comes from enduring peace of mind. Think about it. We spend our lives confined in this pig pen, with only a small patch of sky to look at, and just a few square meters to move around in. The worst part is that once we're fattened up, the slaughterhouse is our only destination. Thinking of this, I can't be content. To avoid this disaster, I must read. Forget it, brother. Live for today. We are pigs, after all, and slaughter is our fate. Accept it, the other pigs said. Brothers, you focus on the concrete and be content. I will focus on the abstract. I don't want to be a pig anymore. I want to become human because only humans can find true happiness, the reading pig said firmly. Can a pig become a human? Asked one thoughtful pig. The reading pig replied, yes, absolutely. Once I have human thoughts, I am no longer a pig but a human. Even if you have human thoughts, can you escape the disaster of being slaughtered? The pig continued to ask. The reading pig said decisively, the evolution from pig to human is gradual. In this life, I am still a pig, unable to avoid disaster, but in the next life, I won't be a pig anymore. I will become a human because the saints among humans say that the form of life corresponds to the way of thinking. If I have human thoughts, I will have a human form of existence. In fact, when I realize that I will be a human in the next life, I already feel a sense of happiness. Sometimes, I even hope the disaster comes quickly, so I can end this life as a pig and start living as a human. The reading pig continued speaking to the group of pigs, brothers, in the next life, you will still be pigs, but I will appear before you in human form. Brother, you make sense? I want to be a human too. Being a pig truly doesn't bring happiness, the thoughtful pig said, as if having an epiphany. The reading pig quietly told it, while we have food and shelter, seize the time to focus on the abstract. If you don't focus on the concrete, You won't have a comfortable life, and poverty is unpleasant. If you don't focus on the abstract, the best you can hope for is to stay where you are. Pigs will remain pigs, and humans will remain humans. 避免小负荷能量的长期冲击. Avoid the long-term impact of small load energy. Xiefeng, February 14th, 2007. Translation edited by Qin Yu. When studying metal materials, our teacher took us to the Zhangjiago Exploration Machinery Factory for a first-hand observation of metal material property testing. A series of testing machines were used to evaluate the tensile strength, compressive strength, bending strength, and other properties of various metals, determining the limit values of each characteristic. For example, a metal rod would be tested to see how much force it could withstand before breaking, or how long it could endure repeated small load impacts before eventually fracturing. I've forgotten the specific parameters, but I remember this. No matter how tough the metal, if subjected to continuous small load impacts, it will eventually break. This truly reflects the saying, "A rope saws through wood, and water drops pierce stone." Even seemingly insignificant forces, when applied consistently over time to an object, person, or principle, will eventually lead to a significant change. A one-time heavy blow can destroy a person, leaving them unable to recover. However, it is often the unnoticeable small load impacts that are the primary culprits in ruining a person's life. A tiny grain of sand in a shoe can stop someone from moving forward, and a small speck of dust in the eye can make it impossible to open. A bedridden loved one can cause someone to abandon their grand ambitions and plans, and a single point of pain in the body can instantly erode a person's confidence. A pure river can become polluted by one factory discharging a little sewage here and another factory dumping some waste there, eventually making and another person throws a bit of garbage there. A perfect natural environment can be degraded by one factory emitting smoke, another dumping trash, one car emitting carbon dioxide, and a refinery spilling waste oil. Eventually, nature will fall ill. A person with a healthy and positive mindset may lose their optimism after facing constant criticism, gossip, fault-finding, and nagging from others. Over time, they may lose their positivity and even begin to doubt themselves. An anthill, though small, can cause the collapse of a 1,000-mile-long dike if not blocked in time. A tiny pinhole in a gas pipe, if not discovered and repaired promptly, can lead to a catastrophic disaster. A seemingly harmless family thief who steals small amounts daily, if not caught and stopped in time, can eventually steal the entire household. In a harmonious group, a person who spreads rumors may seem harmless at first, but if not exposed and dealt with in time, they can turn harmony into conflict, causing the group to fall apart and leading to irreparable damage. As the saying goes, one rotten apple spoils the whole barrel. Life is not easy, but what usually breaks a person is not external difficulties or harsh conditions, but the constant impact of small load forces from within. It's not a single blow that drives someone to suicide, but rather the continuous small load impacts that lead to self-destruction. The Sutra of Land Celestial Beings says, "Avoid anger at dawn. It harms the lungs and damages the liver." This means that one should not frequently lose their temper in the morning. A person who often feels upset in the morning will have shortness of breath and poor liver function, leading to a day of low energy or mental exhaustion. Therefore, within a family or group, members should avoid criticizing or nitpicking each other in the morning. Instead, they should encourage and uplift each other in the morning and save any dissatisfaction for the afternoon or evening. To prevent the continuous impact of small load energy, husbands and wives, parents and children, siblings, friends, and colleagues should avoid frequently criticizing and nitpicking each other. Long-term exposure to even a few hurtful words can lead to declining health, the collapse of family or business, broken relationships, lost confidence, and the destruction of a person's future and life. In life, one must maintain a positive, optimistic, and determined spirit. Even in the face of difficulties and adversity, one must not lose confidence and courage. As the saying goes, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, and heaven never seals off all the exits. Therefore, it is essential to avoid and guard against those who are often pessimistic and constantly nagging and spreading pessimistic views. My advice is to say goodbye to those who frequently criticize and nitpick, and goodbye to those who keep nagging and spreading pessimistic views, because they are the small load energies that may seem insignificant but can eventually break an iron rod. 仇人即是恩人还债之道. Enemies are benefactors, the path of repaying debts. Xiefeng. Translation edited by Qin Yu. The vast, distant heavens know my heart. The myriad gods in the darkness know my name. The operation of the sun and moon is aware of my deeds. The most just entity in the universe is the Tao of the greatest creator. This Tao sees everything with perfect clarity, rewarding and punishing with meticulous precision. When we calm our minds and reflect, we may wonder what causes us to be born into a specific family and environment, what leads us to our current circumstances, and why we encounter certain people, whether they should be in our lives or not. We often feel powerless against our present circumstances, as if we are drifting in the wind with no control over our destiny. All of this is due to the combination of causes and conditions, which may seem chaotic and random. Yet, in reality, everything we experience, whether in prosperity or adversity, happiness or suffering, is a result of our past words and actions, including those from previous lives. The outcomes we face today stem from the seeds we have sown in the past. You reap what you sow. If you want a life free of worries, cultivate yourself diligently. If we hadn't incurred karmic debts in this world, we wouldn't be here. A person's life is essentially a process of repaying debts. As long as these debts remain unpaid, we cannot leave this world. Without understanding this principle, one's life is bound to be lost in confusion, becoming just another ordinary existence among the masses. The wisest way to live is to repay one's debts to the greatest extent possible and to avoid incurring any new debts, which means doing only good deeds and avoiding wrongdoing. In human history, Jesus and Buddha Shakyamuni did this best. Jesus repaid his debts by sacrificing his blood and performing countless good deeds, even atoning for his disciples' sins. Buddha Shakyamuni spent decades teaching and enlightening countless sinners, filling the universe with his merits. They no longer owed any debts to the human world, which is why Jesus became a god and Shakyamuni became a Buddha. In the mythological novel Fengshen Yeni, The Investiture of the Gods, Neza tore out his intestines and carved out his bones to repay the debts he owed to his parents, ultimately reincarnating as a lotus flower and becoming a minor god in heaven. In the novel Journey to the West, the Monkey King, Sun Wukong, underwent 81 trials and tribulations to repay his debt to the monk Tang Sanzang, who had saved his life. Even when unjustly accused by Tang Sanzang after the incident with the white-boned demon, Sun Wukong, despite his anger, knelt to the monk, striving to repay his debt. Jesus taught us that if someone strikes us on the left cheek, we should turn the other cheek to them. Buddha Shakyamuni earnestly advised that if we are despised by the world, our previous sins will be eradicated. Even Mao Zedong taught that the humblest are often the wisest, while the noble are the most foolish. The celestial Laozi taught that to save and help someone, the Tao must first let them endure suffering. Now, let's consider how to repay our debts. We are born between heaven and earth, absorbing the essence of the sun and moon, the vitality of heaven and earth, and enjoying the caress of nature. Thus, we owe a debt to nature. To repay this, we need only be grateful and refrain from spoiling it. We live in society, protected by its laws and constitution, which means we owe a debt to society. To repay this, we must avoid opposing the government. Our life comes from the greatest creator, so we owe a debt to the greatest creator. To repay this, we must follow the way of the greatest creator. Our physical bodies come from our parents, whose love and care are as high as mountains and as deep as the sea. We owe them a debt, which we repay by dutifully honoring them. If we have a master who has enlightened us, guiding us onto the path of life, we owe them a debt, which we repay by expressing our gratitude. Other debts beyond these great obligations must be repaid precisely. Mere gratitude or thanks is insufficient. First, let's address the debts between spouses. Husband and wife are like birds in the same forest, but they fly apart when disaster strikes. When the end of life approaches, it's too late to repay debts. Therefore, we should endure more of our partner's frustrations during everyday life, giving them as much freedom as possible. Even if we end up with a green hat, infidelity, We shouldn't hold grudges or seek retribution. Instead, we should feel joyful. Why? Because such debts can be canceled, freeing us to follow our own path. Next are the debts owed to our children. Children are our creditors by nature, born into our families to collect their debts. We should repay these debts with no complaints, with wholehearted effort, and with joy. There's no room for bargaining. Just give without expecting anything in return. Whether or not they honor us is their business. The less filial they are, the more thoroughly we repay our debts. Even if we end up starving, dying of illness, or without anyone to bury us, we should accept it with no resentment. The humbler our death, the more honorable our life. Then there are the debts owed to siblings, relatives, friends, and strangers. We must strive to repay these debts promptly, without taking even the smallest advantage. As the saying goes, taking advantage of others is harmful, just like radishes are just vegetables. There's no such thing as a free lunch in the world. It is better to give more than to receive, and it is preferable to die without debts than to live a long life with them. Live as long as you can, but if you can't continue, simply sit cross-legged and quietly await the arrival of death and the welcoming of celestial beings. Lastly, we must repay the debts owed to poultry, livestock, and animals. We benefit from the kindness of animals, whether they bring us joy, help us with work, provide us with food, or supply us with materials for clothing, shelter, and transportation. Even though this is all part of creation's arrangement, a debt is still a debt. Humanity has not yet reached the greatness of being able to take the lives of animals at will. As seekers of the Tao, we regard all life equally, so we must repay our debts to them. How? By not mistreating any animal, big or small, and by not killing innocent animals unnecessarily. We should treat them with compassion and sympathy, offer them love, and when we eat their flesh, silently pray for their liberation from the cycle of reincarnation and wish them a swift rebirth in the Western Pure Land. If you do nothing that troubles your conscience during the day, you won't be startled if someone knocks on your door in the middle of the night. If you live your whole life without wronging others, you are destined to ascend to paradise. In addition to the ways mentioned above, there's another channel for repaying debts by treating your enemies as benefactors. If someone bullies, oppresses, abuses, or torments us, they are, in fact, helping us repay our debts through their wrongdoing. This is something to be welcomed. We should gratefully accept their actions. Benefactors are enemies, and enemies are benefactors. Benefactors keep us bound to the mortal world, while enemies help us break free from it. For those who seek the Tao, good is evil, and evil is good. Without others' evil, we cannot achieve our own goodness. The more foolish people there are, the more opportunities there are for us to become a celestial being or a Buddha. Repay debts in all aspects of life, and you will gain the Tao in all aspects. Abandon everything completely, and you will gain everything completely. Are seekers of the Tao foolish? The clearest and most astute minds belong to those who seek the Tao. 空间与仇恨, Space and hatred. Xiefeng. Translation edited by Qin Yu. After the SARS epidemic, I overheard a conversation among a few people. One of them, a beautiful woman in her 30s, remarked, "How did this SARS just pass by? It would have been better if it had wiped out a few billion people." I asked her, "Why would you hope for billions to die from SARS?" She responded, "There are too many people. How can we survive?" This is a typical example of hatred caused by limited space. In a coop that can accommodate 10 chickens, if there are only harmony. But if there are more than 10, violent conflicts between the chickens often occur. In an overcrowded mouse nest, you can often hear the sound of mice fighting. When there are too many bees in a hive, a queen bee will emerge, initiating a splitting activity. In a family, if the population grows too large, complaints and quarrels will inevitably occur, leading naturally to family division. A cramped living space will inevitably lead to hatred among living beings. If this hatred is not resolved in time, it will eventually result in murder. Bees can split and families can divide, but what happens when there is no more space to divide? In other words, although this Earth, which already holds 6.5 billion people, has not yet reached the critical point of mutual killing, the cramped space has already caused governments and citizens to feel an indescribable oppression. This is especially true in populous countries like China, where the fight for survival space begins in early childhood. This is why the woman at the beginning hoped that SARS could eliminate some of the population. Hatred caused by limited space can no longer be judged by moral standards of good and evil. Everyone wants to survive and hopes to live better. This desire for a better life inevitably leads to the plundering of resources and the occupation and invasion of space, which in turn causes pollution of water, land, and air. This pollution leads to a vicious cycle, further shrinking the living space. The smaller the space, the fiercer and more brutal the competition for survival. Humanity must find a solution. If not, plagues, wars, famine, disasters, earthquakes, and floods will accompany theft, robbery, kidnapping, occupation, and murder in quick succession. This is called nature. At the same time, there is another risk, which is the forced purification by divine beings. Years ago, I had a dog named Larry. After mating with a neighbor's dog, Larry gave birth to 11 puppies. Initially, the puppies ran around the yard, bringing vitality and joy, but as they grew, trouble followed. First, they fought over food, then their droppings were everywhere, and eventually, I could not walk through the yard. The 12 dogs competed for my attention, surrounding me so tightly that I couldn't move. Dogs are particularly jealous. To win my favor, they started biting each other. What was even worse was that once the door opened, they would rush out, scaring passers-by, especially children who would scream. I had no choice but to give away 6 of them. The remaining 6 were still not easy to handle. Although the number was reduced, the problems persisted. I had to give away a few more until only 3 were left, and the yard finally became peaceful. I concluded that my yard could only accommodate 3 dogs. Once the number exceeded 3, the number of dogs and the yard size did not match. For the dogs that were given away, they couldn't understand why I had to clean them out, but for me, I knew why I had to remove them from my yard. I was forced to implement a forced purification. In a large yard, keeping a few dogs is my choice, but dogs have their nature. They need to mate and reproduce. Preventing them from mating and reproducing is too cruel, but if they mate too often and have too many offspring, the space cannot accommodate them. The result is forced purification. Humans should be more rational than dogs and should be able to foresee crises. If everyone acts according to their own will, considering only the individual and not the whole, calculating only for the part and not planning for the whole, the result will be to force the divine beings to implement forced purification. To resolve the current crisis of overpopulation and limited space, and to avoid the mutual hatred among humans caused by limited space and the ensuing catastrophe, humanity must live and produce according to the theories of Life Echanuan. But this is just wishful thinking, a fantasy, even a delusion. What should be done? We must take a long-term view and lead those who understand the truth out of the narrow space of competition. As for the rest, leave it to fate. 信即真理，爱即生命. Faith is truth, love is life. Xiefeng. August 16, 2005. Translation edited by Qin Yu. Faith is truth. In Article 57 of the chapter of Revelation, truth is explained as the way of the greatest Creator. Walking the way of the greatest Creator is walking the path of truth. However, this explanation might still seem vague and elusive, making the concept appear broad and mysterious. To bring it closer to reality and help us understand truth more clearly, I will express it differently. Truth is faith. Humanity has always pursued truth, and people often say, we must uphold the truth. Now, people should understand that truth is faith, and truth is the way of the greatest Creator. Faith is a state of resonance within the soul, a meticulous and rigorous thinking structure, a perfectly symmetrical system capable of instant reaction. Faith is an attribute of the greatest Creator, the essence of gods and Buddhas, the quality of celestial beings, and the pursuit of sages. Many people have saved themselves through faith. The New Testament of the Bible contains numerous examples illustrating this. As long as a person has genuine faith, any illness, whether blindness, leprosy, or paralysis, can be healed without treatment. There was a woman who had suffered from uterine bleeding for decades. Because of her faith, she touched the hem of Jesus' garment, and her illness was healed instantly. Faith not only heals, but can also bring the dead back to life. Jesus is the embodiment of faith, and he clearly tells us that with faith, a person could uproot a tree and plant it in the sea. Jesus often expressed frustration with us, saying, "You of little faith." His disciples went out to preach and often returned without success, and Jesus would say they had little faith. Even Peter, who had the greatest faith, wanted to walk on water when he saw Jesus doing so. When he first stepped onto the water, he walked a few steps because of his strong faith. But when he saw the towering waves around him, fear took hold, and his faith quickly diminished. As his faith waned, he could no longer walk on water and began to sink. Jesus called him a man of little faith. If Peter had maintained his faith, if he had faced the stormy waves with calm confidence, he would not have sunk. Buddha Shakyamuni also said that if a person has genuine faith in the Diamond Sutra, they can become a Buddha. If they reach the state of formlessness, they can become a true bodhisattva. I, Xiefeng, have high hopes for many people, referring to them as masters, great ones, saints, messengers, and angels. If these people have genuine faith, they can quickly elevate their wisdom and spiritual awareness under my guidance and become true masters and saints in a very short time. But without faith, they are nothing. In psychology, there is a term called the Pygmalion effect, which can also explain this mystery. There was a Zen master who, in gratitude for a disciple who had served him diligently for over 30 years, respectfully called him Buddha one morning. However, this disciple had no understanding of Zen. When the master called him Buddha, he didn't acknowledge it. Because he lacked faith, he failed to attain sudden enlightenment and become a Buddha. If you don't acknowledge yourself as a Buddha, you will never become one. Even in daily life, faith plays a tremendous role. For example, in a marriage, if a wife has unwavering faith in her husband's abilities and qualities, the family will be warm, harmonious, peaceful, and content, and its economic and social status will rise rapidly. If the wife constantly doubts her husband, has no confidence in him, and frequently complains and criticizes, the family will lack harmony and be in constant turmoil, and, in severe cases, may lead to separation or divorce. In extreme cases, it could even lead to the destruction of the family and the loss of lives. Do you understand now? Love is life. In the Life chapter, I have provided a relatively detailed revelation about life. Life is a non-material structure with spirituality. To those who understand, this is as obvious as a louse on a bald man's head, a clear fact. To those who don't understand, it's like trying to explain quantum physics to a cat, completely bewildering. To bring it closer to reality and make it easier to grasp, I will express it differently. Life is love. Life is a non-material structure, and the more perfect this structure, the higher the quality of life. And perfection is primarily manifested in love. The life of the greatest creator is the most perfect because he has great love. The lives of Jesus and Buddha Shakyamuni are highly perfect because they possess universal love. Jesus loved humanity with his blood, and Buddha Shakyamuni gave up a privileged life and endured hardship for 49 years to relieve humanity's suffering. Their lives are perfect lives. Love can purify the soul and make the structure of life more symmetrical and perfect. Those with Buddha eyes can see into the 36-dimensional spaces. By comparing the differences in life between the Pure Land, the 1,000-year world, the 10,000-year world, the human world, the animal world, the plant world, the netherworld, the frozen layer, and the inflamed layer, you will find that the differences in life at each level are primarily reflected in love. The amount, breadth, and depth of love are the most crucial factors determining which level of existence a life appears and exists in. Crude oil extracted from the earth becomes distinctly separated into light oil, gasoline, diesel, kerosene, and asphalt after refining. The purer it is, the higher its quality and the greater its usefulness. The more impurities it contains, the lower its quality and the less its usefulness. The same applies to people. Once refined with the balance of love, the true quality of the lives of gods, Buddhas, celestial beings, saints, sages, mortals, worldly people, and ignorant people is immediately revealed. To achieve a high-quality life, one must have love. The more love, the broader and deeper it is, the easier it is to ascend to higher life spaces. Conversely, the less love, the narrower and shallower it is, the easier it is to descend into lower life spaces. If there is not only a lack of love, but also the creation of hatred, one is bound to end up in hell, there's no doubt about it. Lovers in the throes of passionate love often say, "I only love you." I say, "You are being foolish. Love the greatest creator. Love gods and Buddhas. Love nature. Love humanity. Love life. And love your enemies. You won't regret it. Understand? Mong Samana. What are you busy with?" Xiefeng. August 16, 2005. Translation edited by Qin Yu. Being busy is a hallmark of modern life. But what is the result of all this busyness? What are we actually busy with every day? Bill Gates is busy, President Bush was busy, CEOs of large companies are busy, street vendors are busy, workers and farmers are busy. Everyone is busy, but the outcomes are different. Being busy can be either a comedy or a tragedy. Whether it is one or the other depends on what we are busy with. Being busy in the pursuit of truth, goodness, beauty, and love is certainly a comedy, while being busy in the pursuit of fame, fortune, power, and personal desires is definitely a tragedy. Some people are busy for the sake of national and ethnic interests. Are their efforts worth it? No, they are not. They are busy blocking the progress of civilization, harming others for the benefit of a few. Many wars have been fought in the name of national and ethnic interests. If everyone prioritized national and ethnic interests over the interests of all humanity, these people would be the scourge of humanity. Being busy for the sake of national or ethnic interests is narrow-minded and short-sighted. Consider the small nations in China's history. They exhausted their resources and mobilized the entire population to engage in life-and-death struggles with neighboring countries, draining the people and the treasury. What was the final outcome? Unification. And that was good. One unified China is better than many small Chinas constantly fighting each other. By analogy, if this world had no nations, or if the entire Earth were one nation, wouldn't that be great? At least the people wouldn't need to support so many military personnel, and military expenditures could be eliminated. There would also be no need for so many administrative personnel, embassies, border guards, immigration offices, customs, and the like could be abolished, and visa procedures could be eliminated. Unification is better than division. In this sense, being busy for the sake of national or ethnic interests is contrary to the development of global civilization. Some people are busy with religious or political parties. Is that busyness worth it? No, it's not. Those who are busy with religion and political parties are actually narrow-minded, blind, selfish, and self-serving. Their busyness does not bring peace to the world, but rather disputes and chaos. Just think. If this world had no religions or political parties, wouldn't that create a more peaceful and harmonious environment? Some people are busy with their small families, working themselves to exhaustion. In the end, who remembers their grandfather? Which family can remain prosperous for generations? A lifetime of busyness for the sake of family might end up bringing not joy and happiness to future generations, but rather pain and misfortune. And what about the husband-wife relationship? It can dissolve at any time. There's no husband whose death would cause his wife to be unable to live, and no wife whose death would drive her husband to jump off a building. A home is a shackle, a cage, but people are deeply trapped in it, with no way out. Today is the era of the internet. Many people are busy online all day, writing articles, making comments, but they haven't thought that these are all fleeting like smoke. Some articles remain online for only a few hours before disappearing. Do we still hope that people will return to read those articles? Other than reading them ourselves, who has the time to go back and read? Every day, there are new articles to read. Who still reads outdated ones? Moreover, most articles do not bring truth, goodness, beauty, and love to people but rather anxiety, trouble, distress, and confusion. They create hatred and expose falsehood, evil, ugliness, and resentment, which is no different from garbage, except that this is cultural garbage, spiritual and mental garbage. Some people are busy making friends, attending meetings, gatherings, banquets, birthday celebrations, housewarming parties, weddings, and funerals. Is this joyful? or sorrowful. The more worldly people you associate with, the more distress you will have. Is it really necessary to be busy with all this? Some people are busy learning knowledge, reading books and magazines, attending various classes and exams, which is very hard work just to make a living. I wonder, in ancient times, people didn't have so many opportunities to acquire knowledge, and they didn't have as much knowledge as we do today. But does that mean they lived unhappy, unfulfilled lives? There are some people whose busyness is indeed valuable because they are busy pursuing truth, goodness, beauty, and love. From this, they gain wisdom, true joy, and happiness, and they elevate the quality of their life. They not only fully enjoy the pleasures of life while they are alive, but also lay a foundation for a beautiful future life. Jesus taught us, what good is it to accumulate wealth on earth? Accumulate treasures in heaven. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. This kind of busyness is the only busyness that is truly valuable. Pursuing truth, goodness, beauty, and love is walking on the way of the greatest creator. We should constantly ask ourselves, what am I busy with? 孕育时间越长，果实越香. The longer the gestation, the sweeter the fruit. Xiefeng. Translation edited by Qin Yu. There's a folk saying, peach trees take 3 years, apricot trees take 4. But if you want to eat walnuts, you'll need to wait 18 years. This means that a peach tree bears fruit 3 years after being planted, and an apricot tree after 4 years. But to taste a walnut, you'll have to wait through 18 springs and autumns for the tree to bear fruit. The more valuable something is, the longer it takes to gestate. In Journey to the West, it is recorded that the ginseng fruit in the Wuzhuang Temple takes 3,000 years to bloom, another 3,000 years to bear fruit, and yet another 3,000 years for the fruit to ripen. If one could eat a ginseng fruit, they would live for 47,000 years. In the Queen Mother of the West's peach garden, the peaches in the front garden ripen once every 3,000 years. Eating one grants health, lightness of body, and immortality. The peaches in the middle garden ripen once every 6,000 years. Eating one grants eternal life and the ability to ascend to heaven. The peaches in the back garden ripen once every 9,000 years. Eating one bestows longevity equal to that of heaven and earth. People who are impatient to taste the fruit will never experience truly delicious fruit. If you sow the seed today and expect to eat the fruit tomorrow, that's called impatience. Some people don't even want to sow seeds and instead plot to get, deceive, steal, or rob the fruits of others' hard work. While there may be a chance of success in this world through such methods, and the lure of success without effort can tempt many to follow suit, the fruits they obtain this way will not be sweet and are likely to be toxic. Some people study Buddhism for 3 days and then expect to become a Buddha. When they don't achieve this in 3 days, they switch to studying the Bible. Before they even understand the basics of the Bible, they start preaching. But when they can't answer others' questions, they either stubbornly insist they're right, quoting a few lines from the Bible to show their steadfast faith, or they abandon the Bible altogether and never think about it again. These people only skim the surface and never grasp the true essence, and in the end, they might even dismiss the classics as useless. Entering a path is deeper than the ocean, and only those who immerse themselves in it can obtain the ocean's fruits. The problem is that few people are truly devoted to their studies, while many just skim the surface, seeking fame and fortune. This is the underlying cause of the restlessness in our current era. Tang Monk endured 81 hardships over 19 years, walking more than 50,000 miles to retrieve the Buddhist scriptures from the West. Through this long gestation period, he finally achieved true results and tasted the sweet fruits. Do modern people still have this kind of